terms that are applied to things in creation. So Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jal commands respect based on what he is doing and his strength. And for that reason and many more reasons, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands respect. And one of the best words to describe the respect we should have for Allah is called Taqwa. That is a special type of fear. Taqwa is an exclusive type of fear that's reserved only for Allah. This type of fear is not the fear that is normally applied to being afraid of something. It doesn't mean to be afraid of Allah. That's not the type of fear that we're referring to when we talk about taqwa. Because Allah does not want us to be afraid of him. Because when we are afraid of something, we avoid it, we run from it. But the miraculous and beautiful thing about taqwa, that type of fear, is instead of that type of fear of Allah making us run from him, that type of fear, that taqwa, draws us closer to him. You see, in creation, brothers and sisters, if there's something that we fear in creation, something that we are afraid of, then we stay away from it. If a rattlesnake comes close to us, we run from it. If a dangerous carnivorous animal is in our environment, we stay away from it, we run from it. If someone has a dangerous weapon and they're waving it around and using it carelessly, we run away from that person. We teach our children not to play in the street because they could get hit by a car and they should stay away from it. Run away from the middle of the street. Don't play there. We stay away from poisonous chemicals and so forth. We run away from them. We stay away from them because we're afraid of them. That's a different type of fear, brothers and sisters. But the fear of Allah, the taqwa that we should have for Allah, is a specific type of fear that is reserved strictly for the creator of the heavens and the universe. That type of fear of Allah or respect for his presence draws us closer to him and closer and more in line, more in collaboration with the obedience to Allah. That type of taqwa or that type of fear is a type of fear that makes us more in compliance with his commandments. It is an exclusive and specific type of fear. And when we have taqwa, and the more taqwa that we have, as it begins to increase, it has an influence, a positive influence on our character. Taqwa has an influence on the way that we carry ourselves. Taqwa has an influence on our decision making and how we choose the things that we involve in this life. The beautiful and miraculous thing about taqwa, or the fear of Allah, is that the more taqwa that we have, the more taqwa we accumulate. The more we fear Allah, the more we become in compliance with the commands of Allah, the more our taqwa increases. And the more our taqwa increases, the more Allah blesses us, the more he helps us, the more he provides for us. Taqwa, or the fear of Allah, also shows in us and in our character our gratitude to Allah. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us that the more we thank Allah, the more he puts on himself to give us. So it becomes reciprocal. We show our taqwa to Allah by showing gratitude to Allah. And when we show gratitude to Allah, he increases the things that he gives us so he can hear us express more gratitude to him. And so the more taqwa we display, the more we accumulate. And the more we accumulate, the more successful we become. And the more successful we become in the eyes and the perception of Allah, in the vision and the perception of Allah, the more he continues to give us. And the more successful we become. That's pure taqwa. That's the beauty of taqwa, is that it continues to grow, and it has no limitation on how far or how high it grows. Taqwa, brothers and sisters, or the fear of Allah, or that respectful fear of Allah, is what separates just being a Muslim from being a mu'min. When you're a mu'min, you believe Allah. Not only do we believe in Allah, but we believe Allah. You see, everyone believes in God. Even atheists believe in God. They're just in denial. An atheist came to me one day and said, I don't believe there's a God. I said, I don't believe there's an atheist. I told him, I said that I can prove that there is a God quicker than you can prove that there isn't one. And my obedience to Allah is a clear proof. It's clear evidence. It's bayina that I have respect for God, and the way that I carry myself, the way that I use my language, the way that I choose my interaction and my activities and my social connections, the way I choose all of that is a clear indication of my level of taqwa, the level of my fear of Allah. Brothers and sisters, don't underestimate the importance of fearing Allah. When we fear Allah, the things of this world, the material things, don't affect us. And we don't become too attached to the things of this world because they cannot benefit us. We don't get too attached to people. We don't get too attached to money. We don't get attached to power. We don't get attached to anything that we could accumulate, anything that we have access to. We don't get too attached to it because that may cause us to show more respect for the material things than we should have for Allah, who provides the material things. He is razaqnahum. Allah is the provider of all of us. And so he commands respect based on all the things he's capable of doing. And each one of the names of Allah that we have access to is clear indication that he commands the respect that we should have for him. And we should not be hesitant to demonstrate the respect that we should have for Allah. We should not be hesitant to teach our children how to respect Allah. Don't go away. Inshallah, we'll be right back after a brief break.
There is none greater than love.
Stories of glories. Often that three. Fought the pangs of poverty by selling gowns at 13. His blindness did not stop his unquenchable thirst for knowledge. Propagated virtues, prevented vice with decisions unchallenged. He is Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Abdullah bin Baz, former Grand Mufti of Saudi. Dialogue. Discussion. Debate. Rebuttal. Conclusion.
Eliminate misconceptions about religion. Get enlightened.
Witness Dr. Zakir Naik in a battle of words in Crossfire every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 12:30 p.m. UK on Peace TV.
Quran is the divine word of Allah. It is the final revelation to humanity. It is a means of healing, both spiritually and physically. Whosoever abides by it is guided. To ponder and reflect on its beautiful verses.
الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم.
Join me on Tafsir al-Quran al-Kareem.
Appreciate the significance of tafsir to realize the essence of the Quran in Tafsir of Quran. Next on Peace TV.
Welcome back. We're so happy you stayed tuned. Let's continue with strengthening our Eemaan. Brothers and sisters, don't underestimate the importance of fearing Allah. When we fear Allah, the things of this world, the material things, don't affect us. And we don't become too attached to the things of this world because they cannot benefit us. We don't get too attached to people. We don't get too attached to money. We don't get attached to power. We don't get attached to anything that we could accumulate, anything that we have access to. We don't get too attached to it because that may cause us to show more respect for the material things than we should have for Allah, who provides the material things. He is razaqnahum. Allah is the provider of all of us. And so he commands respect based on all the things he's capable of doing. And each one of the names of Allah that we have access to is clear indication that he commands the respect that we should have for him. And we should not be hesitant to demonstrate the respect that we should have for Allah. We should not be hesitant to teach our children how to respect Allah. Sometimes we inadvertently teach our children shirk by convincing them that it is us who they should be concerned about respecting over and above the respect for Allah. Of course it is true. And the monotheistic religions of the world teach that we should honor our father and honor our mothers and show respect for them. The Quran says to lower the wing of humility to your parents. Show them respect. But the respect that Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands that we show to our parents is because of the respect that we show to him. So we honor Allah and we show respect to Allah by respecting our parents. We honor Allah and show respect to Allah by respecting each other. We honor Allah and show respect to Allah by showing respect to creation. Everything in creation deserves respect. Even the inanimate things. We have a tendency to disrespect other parts of creation who may not even be human. But everything that Allah created that prays to Allah, he says in the Quran that everything in creation knows its mode of prayer, though we may not understand how it prays. So it deserves respect. There is famous stories about how people were blessed for respecting animals. And Allah appreciates and shows appreciation to us for respect that we show his creation, because respect for creation is respect for Allah. And that is a beautiful level of taqwa. There is a story about the prostitute, a very popular story, how a prostitute woman was walking down the road on a hot day and she saw a thirsty dog who was trying to get to a well to get some water. And she knew the dog couldn't get to the well to get the water. And out of compassion for the dog, she climbed into the well. With her shoe between her teeth, she gathered some water and gave it to the dog. And as a result of that demonstration of respect and generosity and compassion to the dog, Allah forgave that prostitute and gave her paradise. Her respect for the dog, for creation, was also demonstrating respect to Allah. And just as sure, just as clear, brothers and sisters, as respect for creation demonstrates respect for Allah, taqwa, thus just as sure as disrespect for creation shows disrespect to Allah. So naturally, if we disrespect each other, we're disrespecting Allah. Throughout the world, especially in certain countries, there is an epidemic of domestic violence where men and women disrespect each other, especially men who disrespect their wives and beat their wives and abuse them physically and morally and sometimes materialistically. That's disrespect. But the disrespect that they show to their wives and their families is small in comparison to the disrespect they're showing to Allah, the creator of the wives and families. And it's also disrespect for their own soul, because when we disrespect someone, it is our soul that we're disrespecting as well and discrediting. That's a lack of taqwa. Throughout the world, there are children who have not been taught the importance of respecting their parents. And the disrespect they show to their parents is very small in comparison to the disrespect that they are demonstrating to Almighty Allah, the lack of taqwa. There are people who assume positions of power and authority, that disrespect the people, not providing for them, neglecting their needs, abusing them morally, physically, and every other way, becoming tyrants and oppressors. To be an oppressor over people is blatant disrespect to the people. And as we mentioned in an earlier episode, Allah mentions in the Quran that tumult and oppression is worse than slaughter. That's the ultimate disrespect, to oppress someone, to abuse someone, whether morally, physically, or any other way, mentally. But I promise you, brothers and sisters, that even though that's horrible, the disrespect, the lack of respect demonstrated to human beings is very small still in comparison to the disrespect that one is showing to Allah, the Creator. Why? Because when you look at the disrespect of a human being, the disrespect of his or her property, the disrespect to what a bond really should be in the human family, think about the God that we're disobeying. When we disobey when we disrespect someone's property, it's small in comparison to the disrespect to Allah. We lose the element, the pure element of taqwa. We lose that element when we fail to realize that we owe Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pure taqwa. We should try to increase our taqwa. That is the true success. When the muezzin calls the adhan for prayer and he sings out in a melodious tone, Hayya ala al-falah, Hayya ala al-falah. That is an invitation to true success, but not success as it is perceived by human beings. Because human beings have a limited vision, a dunya perception of what success really is. Human beings in our fallible state have a tendency to limit the description or perception of success being material success, a fancy car, a fancy house, a prestige in the community, prestige and power and authority. We visualize that as being success. But when the muezzin says, Hayya ala al-falah, that is success as it is perceived by Almighty Allah, the one to whom the taqwa is due, the one to whom all the praise is due. Allah owns the praise. It's His property. It's not just an idea. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jal owns the praise. And for that reason alone, we should only fear Him with that exclusive type of fear that is called taqwa. The taqwa that we accumulate, brothers and sisters, that we continue to allow to cultivate and germinate within our feeling is for our benefit. It is not for the benefit of Allah. When we draw ourselves closer to Allah, loyal to our salat, loyal to the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, loyal to the commitment to basic human ethics, loyal to basic adab, proper etiquettes and manners. That is pure taqwa, the exclusive fear that is only due to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jal. So the taqwa, or the respect for Allah, should be eminent, should be obvious in the way that we carry ourselves, how we choose our entertainment in our homes, even in our private lives, brothers and sisters, with all the doors closed, even in our private lives, when no one is around but us, what we choose to call entertainment, if it's pure and beneficial to our souls, that demonstrates respect for Allah. And if we want to achieve success, we should show respect for Allah no matter where. It's not just for a show. We shouldn't use our Islamicity, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, for a show to show other people how religious we can act. We have a tendency to wear certain clothes only around people who we think are religious. We have a tendency to use certain language. We use the Quranic terminology sometimes as meaningless cliches, only to try to impress the people around us, to give them the impression that we're of the qaniteen, the religious people. That's not necessarily showing respect for Allah if our niyyah is only to show off, to have riyah, to show off to the people. That's not necessarily demonstrating respect to Allah. We get in our private lives and we turn on distasteful or un-Islamic or off-color entertainment, R-rated movies, X-rated movies, improper chat rooms on the internet. We get in our private corners in the company of people who are not religious, and we tell dirty jokes or laugh at others who tell such jokes. And we think it's funny, it's okay, but Allah is witnessing us. He is witnessing our behavior. He is witnessing the fact that we are not showing respect for Allah. We take our taqwa on and off a shelf like it's something in a museum, a display. But our taqwa should be consistent. It's not real taqwa, brothers and sisters, if it's not consistent. Always focusing on the love and the pleasure of Allah. Always showing that respect for Allah, the one who created us and the one who we owe obedience to. Brothers and sisters, let's work very hard and pray that Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala azza wa jal will increase us all in taqwa so we can expect a goodly reward in this paradise. Astaghfirullah, la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.